Good morning, to another episode of Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. It is cold. It is like winter is hit, but it's only going to last a couple of days, which I'm feeling kind of grateful for. It's just a chilly 10 degrees outside here this morning in Loveland, Colorado. And I am coming off a 4-day amazing women's retreat here in my basement studio where we colored, created, collaged, painted through Tree of Life images. It was amazing. So I'm a little behind on my Inktober Tangles this morning and a little bit sleepy as well after a weekend of work. So I wanted to just enjoy some quiet time practicing some of the tricky tangles this morning. A couple I'm going to show you today are really simple and some of my favorites, and some are a little more complex. So I thought before I commit to putting these inside of my book of Mary Oliver poetry that I've been tangling in all month, that it would be worthwhile to do a little practice first. So if you have been watching along this month, tomorrow I will be back with the final day of Inktober Tangles. So here's an example of what we've been up to this month is practicing our different tangle patterns inside of this gorgeous book of Mary Oliver poems. I was looking for some more examples. That was from day one, Be Light, which is one of my favorite tangle patterns. And I love, good morning, good morning. I love poetry and I love Zentangle. They're two of my favorite things. So all month long, I've been just playing and practicing these different patterns and sharing these poems. But I'm behind, and tomorrow is October 31st, and I have a whole new project designed for us for November, which is all going to be all about gratitude and art journaling. And I'll share more about that later this week. But what I wanted to do today was just practice and play some catch up. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to show the final patterns and a final poem and maybe do a little bit more elaborate design inside the book. I'm not really sure. We'll see when tomorrow gets here. But I wanted to really pay attention to a couple of these patterns because they're quite beautiful and a little bit on the tricky side. So thank you for being here. If you're brand new to Painting in Your PJs, I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and this show is all about art as process over product, all about enjoying the journey and how we can use art both as a form of mindful self awareness and personal growth. And to me, art is such a powerful, powerful tool to help guide us back to ourselves. We get so lost and distracted by everything going on in the outer world that we forget to give ourselves the gift of attention. Good morning, my lovely Californians are here bright and early this morning. Great to see you both. Hi, Yvonne. And we have over 200 people signed up for the Wizard of Oz this week. I'm super, super excited. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to minette.simplero.com. I'm going to type that in the chat here, minette.simplero.com, and check out our mythical makeover featuring the Wizard of Oz. And it is going to be one of those magical, fun, creative journeys that integrates my love of words and my love of art making, as all things do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my camera here. And let's zoom in a little bit this morning, or maybe as much as we can, and we're going to practice. So I skipped day 23 last week because it was a tricky pattern, and even this morning as I was drawing that pattern, I was like, I'm going to have to work hard here to figure out these step outs, but I think I finally figured them out, and so I wanted to share this beautiful, it's actually a really beautiful pattern, but it's quite elaborate, and the pattern is called, I don't know if it's Ros because he is from Spain. It's by Oswaldo Burbano, and or if it's Rus or how he quite says that. But it's a very interesting geometric pattern that feels very architectural. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a square on my page for this one, so you'll be able to see why I wanted to practice this perhaps outside of my book first. And so the creator of this is Oswaldo Borbano, who is a certified Zentangle teacher from Spain, and he does absolutely beautiful work. You can find him at Soyos CZT on Instagram, SOYOS CZT on Instagram. And let's see if we can get our lights back over there and brighten that up. So using my pencil, I just sort of gave myself a little bit of a string here. And then I'm going to come in with my Micron 01 and start drawing the step outs for this pattern. And I'm going to be looking at the step outs more than I am at the screen. So if I move my page off the screen, please do let me know that. And again, this was day 23, which I skipped last week, so I'm doing some makeup today. And we're going to try to get through some of the patterns I missed, and what I don't get through today, I'll finish up tomorrow, which is Halloween already. Holy cow, October 31st, 2023. So to start this pattern, we're going to draw just a series of diagonal lines, little triangles. It's almost as if we're drawing a little mountain range here. And then I'm going to aura that line, and they're pretty far apart. So there's about almost close to an inch in between those lines, between the peaks and the valleys of those lines. And I'm going to do that one more time. So in my string, I have 3 zigzag lines, and the peaks are lined up and the valleys of those lines are lined up as well. So I'm also a certified Zentangle teacher. I've been certified since way back in 2014, and I have been tangling since 2010 was when I was first introduced to it. And it's one of the creative pursuits that I've tried that has stuck for all this time. I love it. It's one of my favorite personal practices, and I haven't taught it a lot over the years, and it's been a lot of fun to start sharing it out more with others. And then at the tops of each of these peaks, I'm just going to draw from the peak up some vertical lines. And I'm going to do that on all of the peaks, on all of my diagonal lines. And I'm probably even going to do it along the edge of my page over here as if I'm drawing on the page. And then I'm going to draw that same line, that same vertical line inside each of the valleys. And we'll probably do that down this left edge as well. So we had vertical lines at the top of each peak and vertical lines going downwards in each of the valleys. And then on the top of these, we're going to make a little upside down, almost as if we're doing a little bit of a flower shape. So I'm going to go up, over, down, and a little bit of a scoop. So that little bit of that upside down C shape, it almost looks like an upside down tulip shape. Except I want that bottom to maybe not be that curved because I am going to join them together. And in this top row only, we're going to go ahead and join these lines together. So you can see why I needed those to be a little bit straight there. So this is about practice, not perfection. The more that we draw a pattern, the easier it will get. And then I'm going to do that again here on these vertical lines that are going from the peak up. And I'm just going slow and taking my time, remembering to relax and not hold my breath, which I have a tendency to do as I'm focusing. And I'm going to go ahead and do that bottom row as well. And even that little half over there. And I'm not going to do the bottom row down here. We're going to finish that one off a little bit differently. So off of each of these little, I'm going to go back to my step outs over here. So we're going to make a really interesting little shape coming off of each of these. But first, so he doesn't show the order that he draws them in, but my sense is it's going to be easier if we go ahead just like we did in that top row and connect all of these lines. Take that out to the edge there. And then on the left and the right of our pretty little tulip shape, we're going to draw almost as if there's like a doorway shape in the background here. So I'm going from about the center of that line down here to the curved line on the bottom. Almost as if I'm drawing a curved rectangle behind. And I'm sort of starting from the bottom, going up to the top, as if I'm drawing behind, coming out on the same place on the other side. And back down again. And then I'm going to come in with a thicker nib pen. This may be too fat. This is an 010, which happened to be floating around on my desk and is not good for getting into little nooks and crannies. But it was one that just came in a set of other pens, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this big chunky tip? So it can be really great for blackening things in and getting them really nice and dark. And I'm just going along and I'm blackening in, just going slow and mindfully in true Zentangle fashion. I always have to remind myself to breathe. And then the final step here is he has a lot of different variations of this, which are really fun. And so I encourage you to look at the step outs on his Instagram page. And this is where it starts to get very architectural. So I'm going to come in here and draw a series of arches. And I'm going to do this on the top and the bottom of the page as well. And then I'm going to come in with that thicker nib pen, and I'm going to just darken this in just a little bit, like it creates a shadow in here with the ink. You could also completely blacken in those arches if you so desired. But already just adding that little bit of black helps create some dimension and some beautiful contrast on the page. So for the month of November, I have been really missing my art journaling practice. So I am going to go back to art journaling, and we're going to work with a series of gratitude prompts and art journaling. I'll be starting that on November 2nd, on Thursday, November 2nd. On the 1st, I will not be live because I'll be driving to the airport to get my husband, who's been gone for a week, and I can't wait for him to come home. And then he also, on one of his variations, added little orbs to the tops of these lines. So this is one of those gorgeous patterns that really has infinite variations. And you can do them in a string, you can do them in the round, like there's so many ways to play with it, but that's the basic structure for the Zentangle pattern Roos by Oswaldo Burbano, who is a certified Zentangle teacher from Spain. A little bit more complicated one there. And after a complicated one, it's really nice to have a much simpler one. So day 25 of Inktober Tangles, day 25 of Inktober Tangles, it's one that is called Milia Crown. It's a really sweet floral botanical pattern, which you know those are some of my favorites. And this is by Susan Yo, who's a CZT from Asia. And this one was inspired by a flower in the Singapore garden, she says. And the flower is small, and the detailed pattern inside is what attracted her. And it's a really, really beautiful. Again, I love the stories that people share behind the origin of the different patterns. So this is a super, super simple pattern, really fun to draw. And it starts with two little C's, upside down C's, or little sort of crescent moons. And then we're going to turn those into the base of our flower shape. And then, of course, we need to close that flower shape. So just a little simple line across there. And then coming up from the center, we have 1, 2, 3. To me, it almost looks like a flame, but that's the center of the flower. And we want this to look like it's coming up and out of the flower. And so to do that, we're going to draw a line across and behind the center of our flower, and we're going to blacken that in. And suddenly it's very simple how it makes it look like this is coming right smack out of the center. And then we're going to add some line weight in here. So we're going to draw kind of a long, skinny triangle. And we're going to black that in. And we have just 2 more steps. I kind of like these a little bit more curly, so I'm going to make mine a little more curly. So I'm going to aura, or create a parallel line, a little spaciousness right around this inner curve here. Just give it a little spaciousness, a little breathing room there. Maybe clean up this line just a little bit. And then to give this flower a little bit of dimension, I'm just going to come in and add vertical lines And I'm going to start to curve those lines and have them all meet at the center at the bottom. To help give our flower that sense of roundness, which we can also do with our shading. And then I'm going to give it a stem. And what I love about this one is whether it's one all by itself or you could draw a whole bouquet of them. You could add a leaf pattern to the stem as well, but this is a really sweet flower shape that has a ton of potential for all kinds of wonderful things. So now we have day 23 and 25. Yes, I skipped 24 because I did that one last week. You can find it in the playlist, in my Inktober Tangles playlist. You will find the step outs for days 21 to 24, and now we have 23 and 25. And I'm having a sense that where was onomato? Did I skip? Oh, no, I totally got those backwards. Okay, nope, this was day 26. I should actually look at my list. I was so excited to draw that one, and I was looking at my sample instead of at the actual list of tangles, so forgive me for that. So this is day 26. Day 25 is a pattern called onomato. This is from Zentangle headquarters, so it's an official Zentangle pattern, and it is an absolute all-time favorite of mine. It's a really simple one, but it involves orbs, and anything that involves orbs makes me really, really happy. So this one I'm going to do kind of just a curved line, and I'm going to aura that line pretty wide, and that might be wider than I want. So we're going to create an inner aura here. Remember, an aura is simply I'm echoing that first line, and this creates this like little white channel space here that's quite lovely, and it creates space in a drawing in a Zentangle design that's often very needed with the busyness of the patterns. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that here as well. And those auras could go on the inside or the outside depending on how wide you want your channel to be. And then I'm going to start right in the center here. And I'm going to draw an orb, and I'm going to turn my tile so it's easier to draw. And I'm going to put a chain of orbs inside this channel. And they're called orbs because they're just not going to be perfectly round, and that's okay. And then inside these little interstices here, I have a couple of choices. I could just black those in with black ink, but I love to put some little teeny tiny orbs in there. And then maybe blacken in any little extra corners around those that are too small for an orb. And I don't know what it is about this specific pattern that just, it's fun to draw, it's pleasing to the eye, it makes a great border pattern around the edge of something. And again, the slower that you go, the more you breathe and relax and take your time, the more even these things will come out. I notice that I'm sort of gripping my pen tight, so I need to remind myself to relax my hand. And that is our very, very simple onomato by HQ, which simply stands for Zentangle headquarters. So fun, fun, fun. 3 patterns so far. So we had a complicated one and a couple of simple ones, and now we're going to go back one more time to a little bit more challenging one. It looks challenging if you were to see it, but the step outs are really, really simple. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over and work on the other side. So this is day 27, and this is Camus by Annette Rumpler with the sweet little umlaut. So Annette Rumpler and Camus. And I would love to know the story by this one. I assume that it has something to do with the philosopher Camus, but I don't know that for a fact. So, and I believe she's from Germany, if I remember correctly. So again, this one is one that I love. It ends up looking really festive and complex, and you have to pay attention. And I do like patterns that require us to pay attention because that's when we get into that more mindful moment, is when we slow down and we take our time and we pay attention. So this pattern starts with 3 crescent moons, looking like they're hanging from that top line up there. And then I'm going to draw 2 vertical lines from the bottom of each crescent moon to the next line in my string here. So we have 3 crescent moons. So it looks like the bottom of a flower with a stem. And then we're going to start to weave lines behind. In the Zentangle, there's a principle of learning to draw behind. So I'm going to start up here at the edge of this line. I'm going to aura that line. I'm going to come right to the edge of my crescent moon. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm drawing behind. Go look at my step outs, make sure I get everything in the right order. So then we're going to aura around our crescent moon. And then we're going to aura around our stem. And then I'm going to start the process over. So I'm going to start at the top, always drawing behind the next line. And then I'm going to go to the bottom. And then I'm going to come back to the center, adding that aura line around the crescent moon. So this is one where you start to get into your rhythm, just making sure you're always following that same pattern of adding those aura lines, and you can already start to see this come together in a really beautiful way. And I messed up there, right? I forgot to draw the line behind, but I'm going to make that okay And I'm going to just keep going with the same pattern. And at the end, I say I messed up. There are no mistakes in Zentangle. And you won't notice at the end that I have missed one of those lines. So now I'm going to come back, always starting with the parallel lines. That was what I missed. Top and bottom, round, and straight. Oops. This is what happens when you don't turn your tile to make it easy to draw. And I'm working on some pretty textured watercolor paper, so I have to be a little more mindful because my pen skipped there. So it was top, bottom, round, and vertical. And you just continue this process until you have filled all your spaces and there's nothing left to fill. And I actually kind of like a little bit of that open space in there. It's interesting. And maybe I just get to where I just kind of make it up to fill the inside if I can't quite squeeze all the patterns in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and blacken in those crescent moons. And this is one where you can have a lot of fun with the shading. So I'm going to come in and I want to shade and create a little more depth around those crescent moons up there. And I'm thinking probably along the stem as well. Just sort of have them pop out to the foreground again. So I've got my pencil, I've got my little smudge stick here, my tortillon. And we don't have to have a lot of shading. I can also shade right in these spaces between, which is going to make those look like they're receding towards the background of our design. So you can have a lot of fun and create a lot of drama on the shading with this one. And let's come back over here as well. I think I want to add some shading in my arches. This is back to my Rose pattern. And then I think I'm going to shade in my valleys. And we'll see how that looks, and we'll see what else it needs. So I don't want to completely shade those in because I want it to start to look a little bit like maybe it's a tunnel. So we have, again, started creating depth and layers. Let's come in and soften up all of that graphite. We don't want those hard edges. And I love tangling on really nice watercolor paper because we can work a lot with that graphite. And so I'm looking at this saying, okay, is there somewhere else where it needs a little shading? And I realize like something was missing and I just forgot these valleys down here. So let's come back and add a little touch of graphite. Remember to always start with less graphite, add more as you go. And again, to me, this one looks like a row of houses. Thanks, Blanca. Me too. Aren't they lovely? Like, and I love really the diversity of the patterns. And so for this one, I want to just create a little roundness to my flower. So I'm just going to put a little graphite around the edges. I can put a little graphite down one side of the stem. And the thing about Zentangle is that we learn to fall in love with patterns. And if there's any of these patterns you don't love, you don't have to draw them or use them ever again. But I think the more we practice, the more we start to find our own flow, our own expression and experience with all of these patterns. And then onomato, what we want to do here is we want to make these orbs look round. So I'm going to just add that little scoop of shading at the bottom, kind of like almost like a little sort of Nike swoosh in there. And I might also just add a little shading along the top and the bottom to create a little depth in my channel there. Probably more graphite than I wanted on those orbs, so that I've been working on the newsprint in the book of poetry, and I'm noticing that, okay, probably didn't need quite that much graphite, and it's harder to take graphite away than it is to add. So those might be a little bit, darker than I wanted. And again, this is about practice over process, or process and practice over product. So me too, Yvonne. So some lovely catch-up patterns day 23, and then we've got 25, 26, and 27 as well. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more. I can't remember, Blanca, is it November or December? I thought I started in December. But yes, coming up on 1 year anniversary. Isn't that crazy? Thank you for remembering. So I'm going to do one more for today and then we'll be complete. And this one is called Casual with a K. Let me make sure I'm getting these in order before I say something that's not true. Yeah, this is day 28, Casual. 28, and this is by Irache Unzurunzaga. Garate. And I don't know where she is from, but again, another one whose work is quite lovely. And Casual is a really fun one. I love it because it's kind of an open, lacy pattern. Hey, Judy, good morning. A fun, lacy pattern. It looks complicated, but once you figure out the rhythm of it, it's simple to draw. So we're going to draw just some long, skinny rectangles. And we're going to create a little bit of a grid pattern here with these little rectangles. So then in between these two, I'm going to stagger them. I'm going to leave a space between them. And do one more row. So I have 2 rows of 2 and 2 rows of 3 in a grid pattern. And then I'm going to divide each of these in half with a horizontal line. Divide each of my rectangles in half with a horizontal line. And what I love about this lattice pattern is it's a lot of just repeating lines. And we're going to use a line shape that looks like this and like this. So similar to the Melia crown flower shape, they're just a form of an S. And they curve in different directions, but that's basically how we're going to draw this pattern. And I probably wish that I had drawn this one even a little bit bigger. So the way the pattern goes is that we're going to go from the middle line of the rectangle to the top of the line of the next rectangle. We're going to go from the bottom of a rectangle to the middle of the next rectangle. And we're going to use this this S curve, either going left to right or right to left. So I'm going to start over here and I'm going to go from the middle here, curving that down in that S shape to the top of the next rectangle. So I'm going from the bottom to the middle. And then I'm going to curve the opposite direction and I'm going to go from the middle to the top and from the bottom to the middle. And we're just going to repeat that pattern from the middle to the top and the bottom to the middle. And then we're going to come to the next one and we're going to reverse the direction of our curves, turning your page as needed. So from this one I'm going from the top, or from the middle to the top, from the bottom to the middle, from the middle to the top, and the bottom to the middle. And that one, so same. I was getting myself, like, you have to really, this is one to take your time and pay attention. So from the bottom to the middle, from the top to the top, or from the middle to the top. And it becomes just this really fun woven pattern. So this one's going from the bottom to the middle, mostly to the middle. So check yourself, right? Before you get started, like kind of do that imaginary line before you put your pen down so you make sure you're heading in the right direction. And you could fill big spaces with this, right? And it has endless variations. So see, I almost went, because I'm trying to talk and tangle. Endless variations for filling in the centers of these, or where you're creating a composition and you need something more open. This is a great one for that. And by varying the grid layout, you can really vary. I'm wanting to finish this last row, so I'm going to go ahead and tuck one more of these in here. So by varying the design of your grid, you can really vary the look of this pattern by how close the rectangles are together, how far apart they are. So this is casual. And again, this is a fun one that you can leave as is. And I could just come in and add just a little bit of shading in and around the edges of these, but you could also fill these center open spaces with other patterns, like crescent moon would be beautiful in there, or some ennies would be beautiful in there. And it's lovely on its own. And one of the things I have really enjoyed about Inktober Tangles is that not only does she provide the list of patterns to explore and try, but she also links in the PDF to all of the step outs for all of the patterns. And it's such a fabulous resource. So there's what it might look like. Hey, Tori, good morning. I'm just finishing up. I'm trying to play some catch up after my retreat this weekend. And tomorrow is the 31st already, so I had a lot of catch up to do. So for today, we practiced, I did a makeup day for 23. I skipped that one last week because it looked too tricky and I wanted to practice. So we did 23, 25, 26 gorgeous patterns, and 27 and 28. Tomorrow I'll finish up with 29 through 31, and we will complete our month of poems and patterns. Tomorrow I will get back to actually drawing in my book, but I wanted us to spend a little time practicing today first and to get my hand back into the patterns. And then starting in November, I'm going back to art journaling, and we will be working on gratitude prompts in an art journal. My son has made a beautiful handout, which I will be sharing by email, as well as here a link to it on the YouTube channel for anyone that wants to join me for a month of gratitude and art journaling. So have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. Great to see you. Love just stopping by unexpectedly sometimes and having a little catch-up day. I will be back live tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, and hopefully it'll be a little warmer than 11 degrees outside, but who knows? So here we are again. Thank you so much for those of you that have been watching all month long and tangling along with me. Lovely to be in the journey with you. I'm Dr. Minette. This is Painting in Your PJs. I'll see you guys all soon. Bye-bye.